I found my wallet inside your purse. You thief!
Magdalene, my sister-in-law, shouted, glaring at me as she rummaged through her purse. This incident occurred during a family dinner at my fiancé's parents' house, shortly after we had set a date for our wedding. Among the gathered family members was Magdalene, whom I had always found difficult to deal with. When we visited my fiancé's family to announce our engagement, Magdalene happened to be there and had set her sights on me. Since then, she frequently invited me out to eat, saying things like,
I don't have any change on me today, could you spot me?
Or,
I forgot my wallet, lend me some money, will you?
Not once had she ever paid for her own meal. Moreover, she never paid back the money I had lent her. At first, I genuinely wanted to get along with her. However, as my distrust grew day by day, I tried to avoid interacting with her as much as possible, but, accused of being a thief in front of my fiancé and relatives, my mind went blank. The wallet Magdalene was holding was undoubtedly hers, and I swore I had never stolen it.
Magdalene, please calm down for a moment.
What? Are you going to make excuses? I'll make sure to claim a hefty settlement from you for stealing my wallet, so be prepared.
She shouted excitedly, not even giving me a chance to interject. Seeing her like that, I regained my composure and couldn't help but let out a chuckle. The relatives also burst into laughter, leaving her stunned by the scene.
What's so funny?
As she spat out those words, her face turning bright red, I decided to tell her the truth.
I can't help but laugh. You've said some pretty terrible things, Magdalene.
My name is Anastasia. I'm a 28-year-old company employee who recently got engaged to my longtime boyfriend. My fiancé, Houston, is 2 years older than me and my supervisor at work. Houston had always looked out for me since I joined the company. My first impression of him was that he was a reliable boss, easygoing and sincerely listening to his subordinates. As we spent every day together, we became close enough to discuss not only work but also our personal lives, and before we knew it, we developed special feelings for each other. Being close in age and having many common interests may have been one of the reasons. After a few years of a smooth office romance, we decided to get married and agreed to first inform our respective parents. When we visited my family home first, my parents and sister wholeheartedly congratulated us. My sister Andy is 7 years older than me, already married, and lives near our family home with her husband and 2 children. Due to an illness she's had since childhood, she currently works from home as a translator. Upon hearing that I was coming home, she apparently finished her work early to come and see me.
Anastasia, my heartfelt congratulations. Houston, please take good care of my little sister,
Andy said with a smile, making a sincere request to Houston. She had always doted on me since I was young, and I adored my kind and intelligent sister Andy. On the way home after greeting my family, Houston said, "You have a wonderful sister," which made me as happy as if he had complimented me directly.
You have a sister too, right, Houston? I'm really looking forward to meeting her soon,
I replied, but Houston's expression turned somewhat complicated for some reason.
I'm glad to hear you say that. But the thing is, my sister can be a bit self-centered and pretentious, so I'm worried she might cause trouble for you, Anastasia.
Houston answered reluctantly. It seemed he didn't really want me to meet Magdalene. As for me, I wanted to get along with her since she would be my sister-in-law. But at that time, I couldn't have imagined that this person named Magdalene would become a source of constant headaches. Later, when we visited Houston's family home, his parents greeted us at the door.
Anastasia, it's been a while. It's so nice of you to come.
My future mother-in-law Albertine welcomed me in a relaxed tone, while my future father-in-law Abraham gave me a gentle smile. I had only spoken with Houston's parents a few times at their doorstep, but our relationship was good. However, this was my first time entering their house, so I was nervous about announcing our engagement and meeting Magdalene for the first time. As it turned out, Magdalene happened to be out at the moment. In contrast to my disappointment, Houston clearly had a relieved look on his face. I wondered if he really didn't want me to meet her that badly. With her in the back of my mind, the conversation flowed smoothly thanks to my future in-laws' kind personalities, and my nervousness quickly dissipated, leading to an enjoyable time. They were genuinely delighted about our marriage, and feeling reassured by their reaction, we began preparing to leave. Just as I was about to put on my shoes at the entrance while my future in-laws saw us off, the front door suddenly opened from the outside.
I'm home.
And a woman entered. Upon seeing her,
Ah.
Houston let out a small gasp.
Oh, Houston, what are you doing here? You're leaving already? Since I just got back, stay a little longer,
she said. The woman blocking the doorway looked to be in her mid-30s, around the same age as my sister Andy. However, she wore heavier makeup and gave off a strong-willed impression. I immediately realized this was Houston's sister, Magdalene. According to what he had told me, she was divorced in the past and had no children with her ex-husband. It's nice to meet you. I'm Anastasia, and I've been dating Houston. We recently decided to get married, so we came to give our greetings, I said, bowing my head to Magdalene, but the reply I received was a curt,
Huh.
When I looked up, Magdalene was staring at me intently. Then, with a smirk, "Where did you meet Houston?" she asked.
Hey, Magdalene, this is the first time you're meeting Anastasia. Don't start asking questions like that out of the blue,
Houston said, exasperated, but she ignored him.
How much do you make? You're well-dressed, so you must be wealthy, right? Do you work at the same company as him?
And she continued to bombard me with more questions.
Well,
I was at a loss for words, overwhelmed by her barrage of questions, when Houston intervened and scolded her.
That's enough. Can't you see you're making Anastasia uncomfortable? We're leaving now, so please move out of the way.
He tried to separate me from her, but Magdalene glared at him as if to say he was interfering.
What's the big deal? If you're getting married, we'll be sister-in-law, so I should be allowed to chat with her a bit. Oh, I know, Anastasia, let's exchange contact information while we're at it.
I hesitated when Magdalene said that, pulling out her phone from her purse, but since we would be family in the future, I couldn't really refuse. In the end, I gave in to her forcefulness and shared my contact information, but I immediately regretted it, wondering if it was the right thing to do.
Magdalene, don't cause too much trouble for Anastasia,
as Albertine said, but Magdalene didn't seem to care at all and went inside the house. I finally understood why Houston's face had clouded over when Magdalene was mentioned the other day. Unlike her brother Houston, she seemed to be pushy and unwilling to listen to others. She was the complete opposite of Andy. I couldn't help but feel anxious about whether I'd be able to get along with her in the future. However, since we would be family, my desire to have a good relationship with her remained unchanged, so I resolved to reply politely whenever Magdalene contacted me. After exchanging contact information, I started receiving frequent emails from her. As we corresponded, we discovered that our workplaces were close to each other, and one day, Magdalene invited me to have lunch with her during our work break. Seeing no reason to refuse, I agreed, but on the day of our lunch, just as we finished eating and were about to pay the bill, Magdalene let out a small, "Oh," as if she had just realized something. "What's wrong?" I asked.
I'm sorry, Anastasia. I don't have any change on me right now. Could you spot me? I'll pay you back later,
she said, looking inside her wallet without a hint of remorse. I found her behavior to be careless, but I thought it was just one lunch, so I covered for her as she had asked. However, on another day,
Oh no, I forgot my wallet. Anastasia, could you pay for me instead?
Even though she was the one who frequently invited me to lunch, she kept making excuses to have me pay for her share of the meal. When I asked for reimbursement later, she would brush it off, saying,
The cost of lunch isn't that much, is it? Don't sweat the small stuff.
And wouldn't take me seriously. Even though a single lunch wasn't a significant amount, she kept inviting me, so my financial burden gradually increased. In the end, even after several months, the money I had paid on her behalf never made its way back to me, and my distrust of her grew day by day. I realized that Magdalene was someone I should avoid as much as possible, and my desire to get along with her had completely disappeared. Recently, when she invited me to lunch, I would make up an excuse to decline and kept my email responses to a bare minimum. I tried to cut ties with her as much as possible, but one day after work, as Houston and I left the company together, someone immediately called out my name in a familiar voice. When I looked in the direction of the voice, I was shocked to see Magdalene standing there. She had been waiting for me to finish work.
Look at you two, leaving work together like a happy couple,
Magdalene said in a sarcastic tone, causing Houston to frown.
Magdalene, do you need something?
Houston asked, and she smiled sweetly.
Actually, I have plans to have dinner with friends today, but I'm a little short on cash. Anastasia, could you lend me some money?
She said to me. Her behavior, as if she had gotten a taste for it, made me feel genuinely disgusted.
I'm sorry, but no. You still haven't paid back the money I lent you before.
The moment I firmly refused, she became disgruntled.
How cold of you! We're family, aren't we? When it comes to family, lending and borrowing money should be no big deal. Besides, you make more money than I do,
she said shamelessly, leaving me astonished. Besides, I had never once discussed my salary with her, but she had probably looked into it since Houston and I worked at the same company. Also, I wanted to argue that I didn't recall becoming part of her family yet, but before I could open my mouth, Houston scolded her.
Even if we're family, you shouldn't be borrowing money like this. Before going out to dinner, you should pay back the money you borrowed from Anastasia first. If you can't return it right now, then just go home for today. Now wait a minute, Houston, who do you think you're talking to like that? I'm your sister. Are you really going to take some other woman's side over your own sister?
Magdalene glared at me while calling me an outsider, even though she had just referred to us as family. Furthermore, she started spouting off some nonsense that I couldn't make any sense of, saying,
Besides, in this day and age, women need to have their own money too. Do you understand? If you can't lend me money, it's like broadcasting that you're poor.
Houston seemed to have lost the energy to be angry and was utterly exasperated.
You're not making any sense, Magdalene. Anastasia, let's go. Don't pay any mind to what she says.
We had no desire to say anything more to her, so we decided to leave the scene, pretending not to know her. Our colleagues leaving work were glancing our way as they passed by, making us the center of attention.
Hey, wait a minute, don't you dare leave,
she shouted from behind us, but we didn't look back. Even after that, I occasionally received messages from her, but I was busy preparing for the wedding, so I kept my responses brief and non-committal. Of course, I turned down her invitations to meals, and I hadn't seen her since she ambushed me in front of the company. Amidst all this, we successfully set a date for the wedding, and a dinner party was arranged for both families to gather. The location was my fiancé's family home. Shortly after Houston and I arrived at his parents' house, my parents and Andy arrived as well. Magdalene was present at the dinner, but while she greeted me, she didn't say anything to me directly, which was unexpectedly mature of her. While her attitude felt eerie, the table was filled with lavish dishes, and the atmosphere was one of celebration. The dinner party ended on a pleasant note, with everyone chatting and enjoying themselves, when suddenly Magdalene, who had just returned from the restroom, started shouting,
What? It's gone! It's gone! Where's my wallet?
Apparently, the wallet that was supposed to be in her purse had disappeared.
Calm down a bit. Are you sure you didn't just leave it in your room?
Albertine tried to appease her, but she didn't seem to hear her at all.
I'm positive I put it in my bag. That's it, I get it now. You stole it, didn't you?
She said, looking at me, then grabbed my bag that was placed near me and started rummaging through it. Then, with a look of shock on her face, she pulled out a wallet from my bag. It was her wallet, which I had seen several times before.
See, I told you. My wallet was in your purse.
Magdalene shouted in a strangely triumphant tone and continued to confront me.
You stole it while I was in the restroom, didn't you? Acting all innocent, but you're a terrible woman. I'm against someone like you becoming my brother's wife.
Magdalene, please calm down for a moment.
Are you going to make excuses? What you did is theft. I'm going to sue you for damages, so be prepared.
Without giving me a chance to interject, she shouted excitedly. However, unable to bear it any longer, I let out a chuckle.
Ha 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 ha.
As I started laughing, my parents and Houston also burst into laughter. Faced with this scene, she was stunned at first, but soon her face turned bright red, and she became angry.
What's so funny? I can't help but laugh. You've said some pretty outrageous things, Magdalene. Huh?
The next person to speak to her, who seemed unable to comprehend the situation, was my sister Andy, who was sitting next to me.
That purse isn't Anastasia's. It's mine.
The moment she heard those words, Magdalene's expression froze.
What?
Her face was covered in cold sweat. I asked, with a hint of confirmation.
There's no way Andy could steal your wallet, right?
It seemed Magdalene had indeed been waiting for an opportunity to pick a fight with me. Anticipating that she might try something, I hadn't brought a purse to today's dinner party. The purse next to me belonged to my sister, and moreover, my sister couldn't possibly pretend to steal someone's wallet. Such a thing was absolutely impossible. Because my sister had been unable to move her legs since childhood due to an illness and used a wheelchair to get around. She couldn't stand up or walk on her own. My future in-laws and Magdalene had seen my sister arrive at the dinner party in a wheelchair. And my sister hadn't moved from her current seat since the dinner party began, engaging in friendly conversation with our parents and future in-laws. Most likely, it was Magdalene herself who had put the wallet in my sister's purse. The question was, when did Magdalene manage to sneak the wallet in without us noticing?
Magdalene, you came near us to greet me and my parents before we started eating, right? At that time, I'm pretty sure you were sitting in a way that hid my purse behind your back. I felt something was off about your behavior. Isn't that when you slipped the wallet in?
Andy's calm words resolved my question. Unable to immediately answer the question, Magdalene's eyes darted around nervously. Her reaction was as good as admitting it was true. Cornered with no way to talk herself out of it, Magdalene let out a groan.
Ugh.
She continued to admonish her in a calm tone.
I heard about your personality from Anastasia. We're almost the same age, so why would you go to such lengths to harass her? Please don't hurt my precious Anastasia any further.
Hearing these words, I finally realized that my sister was angry. My sister has a gentle personality, but ever since we were young, when she gets angry, her tone becomes quiet and reproachful, which is quite frightening. As Magdalene fumbled for words, unable to make excuses after being lectured, my future mother-in-law scolded her.
Magdalene, what do you think you're doing? Calling Anastasia a thief is beyond shameful.
This is just pathetic. We raised Houston equally, so where did we go wrong in raising you? Anastasia, I apologize for my daughter's actions.
My future father-in-law Abraham bowed his head to me. However, even seeing her parents apologize, unfortunately, it didn't seem to reach her heart. The next moment, Magdalene stood up with force and glared at me with a terrifying expression.
What? You're all ganging up on me now? I was against you and Houston's marriage from the beginning. I was hoping you'd be humiliated and break up today, but you just had to ruin it.
She started lashing out irrationally at this point, leaving me dumbfounded and speechless. But Houston, upon learning Magdalene's true feelings, flew into a rage.
"Don't screw with me,"
he shouted, causing her to flinch.
"Listening quietly until now, I see you were trying to ruin our relationship after all. I can't take it anymore, so I'm going to say it all right here." "What? Wait a minute, what are you going to say?"
She hurriedly tried to stop him, but Houston, whose patience had run out, wouldn't be stopped. He exposed all of Magdalene's misdeeds up until now, like making me cover lunch expenses and never paying me back, and ambushing us in front of our company to beg for money. Furthermore, according to Houston, Magdalene had been secretly bad-mouthing me to Houston, trying to break us up by any means necessary.
Who would believe such words? Anastasia has been working hard since she joined the company, and I know better than anyone that she has a serious and kind personality. Even if we're family, there are things you should and shouldn't say.
He didn't go into detail about what kind of bad-mouthing Magdalene had done. But from how intensely he was seething, I could imagine she had spread some pretty terrible rumors.
I had no idea something like that happened.
When I expressed my surprise at hearing this for the first time, his face turned regretful.
"I'm sorry. I kept quiet because I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily, Anastasia. No matter what she says, I believe in you."
Hearing him say that in a serious tone, I felt my eyes well up with tears. I wiped the tears that had formed and turned to face Magdalene.
"Magdalene, I've decided to stand by Houston no matter what. So please take this opportunity to properly let go of your little brother."
At my words, Magdalene's face flushed red, perhaps from embarrassment.
"Shut up! You better remember this,"
she said before storming out of her parents' house. Enveloped in a sense of relief after the storm had passed, I let out a deep sigh. No matter what kind of harassment she tried from now on, I wasn't afraid of anything. This incident had only deepened my love for Houston. I vowed in my heart to continue believing in him and walking together with him. A few days later, the money I had covered for Magdalene's lunches was returned to me through my future in-laws. Apparently, they had persuaded Magdalene to prepare the money she had borrowed from me. And then, it seems Magdalene's ex-husband had contacted her parents' home. The cause of their divorce was her extravagant spending, and she had even gone as far as to use up their living expenses. As a result, her ex-husband had demanded compensation from her in the divorce proceedings. While she had told her parents that the payments were already settled, it appears there was still a substantial amount remaining. It came to light through the ex-husband's contact that the repayments had recently fallen behind. Upon learning this, her parents had finally had enough of Magdalene and cut ties with her. In addition to her misdeeds against us, it seems she had a prior history of stealing money from her family. It turns out that aside from the compensation, Magdalene had debts from splurging on brand name items and frequenting host clubs. According to what Houston told me, Magdalene had been heavily involved in nightclubs since her 20s, and her parents had reprimanded her numerous times. In the end, when she couldn't make ends meet, she even embezzled money from her workplace, which is just unbelievable. That was also found out by her company, and she was recently fired. Sometime later, I received a call from Magdalene, who had been kicked out of her parents' home and lost her job.
I have no one else to turn to but you, Anastasia. Please, just lend me a little money,"
she pleaded in a tearful voice, but of course, I refused.
"Isn't that a bit too convenient for you now? Please pay back the compensation and debts by earnestly working and earning your own money. I have no intention of being involved with you anymore." "What? Aren't we family? Let's get along from now on." I wanted to get along with you at first too. But I have no desire to become family with someone who spends money recklessly and doesn't think what they've done is wrong at all.
After I said that, she was still shouting something, but I hung up the phone without engaging. After that, Magdalene apparently started living in poverty in an apartment she could afford with her meager savings. However, hounded by her debts, she soon had to vacate the apartment, and now I don't know where or how she's living. Houston also said he would never get involved with her again. A month passed, and we successfully held our wedding without Magdalene present. The happy time blessed by many people is a precious, once-in-a-lifetime memory that I cherish even now. After getting married, we began living in the new home we had prepared beforehand, and soon after, I discovered I was pregnant. Eagerly awaiting the birth of the child growing in my womb, I spend fulfilling days together with Houston. I can only hope to continue living happy days together with our newly born family from here on out.
I've got a spa reservation today. Walk to the hospital, will you? Come on, get down quickly. If you won't get down by yourself, I'll make you get down.
My granddaughter Shirley and I, confused, both feverish and delirious. On a day of heavy snow, we had both come down with a high fever. This was happening in the car, as Jennifer, my son's wife, reluctantly agreed to drive us to the hospital. We couldn't comprehend Jennifer's words and couldn't get up from the car. She must have been displeased with our pitiful state. Jennifer came around to the back seat, dragged me and Shirley out of the car.
Now, the nuisances are gone. Good luck making it to the hospital.
Laughing loudly, Jennifer drove away.
Mom, did she really just abandon us?
Even in such a moment, Shirley still saw her as her mother. Shirley had been harassed by Jennifer even before this incident. She hid all the harassment from us adults, always trying to act strong. But when you're sick, your true feelings can show. Feverish and delirious, tears in her eyes, Shirley watched the car drive away. We had been enduring Jennifer's harassment for a while, but this was the last straw. From the hospital phone, I managed to call someone for help. I'm Carol. I retired last year and now work part-time, a 60-year-old housewife. Until 6 months ago, I lived in a small detached house with my husband. However, he suddenly passed away due to illness. It was just 2 months after the illness was discovered. The suddenness of it all made it hard for both my son Edward and me to accept reality. I had been with my husband since we were in junior high. It felt like our hearts and bodies were in the same state. Right after he passed, I couldn't even eat. Sorting through his belongings at home, I couldn't stop crying and barely made any progress. Edward would occasionally come to the house to support me. Gradually accepting reality and finishing the home organization, Edward suggested I live with him. But Jennifer is there, so I'll refrain. Edward got married around the age of 30. His wife, Jennifer, a housewife 2 years younger than him, approached him at their workplace. Won over by her passionate pursuit, Edward, after about 6 months of dating, quickly married her. After marrying and retiring, Jennifer was blessed with a child and gave birth to their daughter, Shirley. Jennifer truly adored Edward. Though their meetings were infrequent, it was evident from her actions how much she valued Edward. Perhaps that's why she preferred to keep some distance from the in-laws' house. Jennifer and her family lived about an hour's drive from our home, having bought an apartment there. However, even after marriage, Edward remained very caring towards us, his parents. He once bought a refrigerator for my birthday as a present. Not only that, but for our wedding anniversary, he would take us, his family of 3, on vacations. He was a child with strong family values, by any standard. But it's not like we spoiled him without limits. Of course, we praised him when he did well and scolded him for doing what he shouldn't or when he behaved badly. Even after marriage, we told him not to go out of his way for us and to prioritize Jennifer and their family. However, Edward always said,
Jennifer is very understanding. She always supports me.
and never changed his ways. But Jennifer seemed to harbor some dissatisfaction towards Edward. In moments when it was just the two of us women, she would indirectly speak ill of us, as if she harbored hostility. There were no direct actions like breaking things, but I feared something might happen if we spent too much time together. Edward was a good kid, but not the best at sensing things. Jennifer seemed to take advantage of that, acting as a gentle and kind woman in front of Edward. Between the two of them, they seemed to manage well enough. Honestly, I had some reservations about moving in with them due to these circumstances. Living alone can be tough, right? Jennifer and Shirley are both on board with you moving in. Having my granddaughter Shirley around meant I wouldn't be alone with Jennifer as much. Plus, it was unlikely she would do anything in front of Edward. Shirley was cheerful and more like Edward in personality. She was fond of me, too. Holding on to a sliver of hope, I nodded in agreement.
All right. I'll be careful not to be a bother. Please let me live with you.
You're more than welcome. We'll get your room ready.
Since I wasn't giving up my own home, I only had to pack the essentials. Thus, I moved in with Edward and his family, keeping only the most important things at my house. My faint hope was quickly shattered. After moving in, I experienced harassment from Jennifer, especially when Edward wasn't around. She would open parcels I ordered online, eat the ice cream I bought without permission. And sometimes my laundry was the only batch not washed. Carol can do it herself since she's capable. Please buy your detergent, too. If I used the dryer, I'd be scolded for wasting electricity. Reluctantly, I started separating my laundry into a different basket. Yet Edward noticed nothing. Instead, he thought I was voluntarily taking on household chores. This was likely because he spent little time at home and left all the housework to Jennifer. Jennifer actively takes care of Shirley in front of Edward, so life goes on to some extent. However, this life felt suffocating for me. I debated countless times whether to report this to Edward or leave the house. But I thought all it took was for me to endure. I didn't come here to break up a family with a daughter. Instead of talking to Edward, I kept a diary of my unspoken frustrations. As potential evidence for anything that might happen, detailing everything meticulously. Using a voice recorder would have made for stronger evidence. But I didn't want to escalate things, so I refrained. It was frustrating, but I was living under their roof. I was determined to endure until things settled down. That was until I saw Jennifer harassing Shirley. I caught her throwing Shirley's stuffed animal into the trash. It didn't seem like discipline or teaching a lesson. Edward has always adored children, especially his daughter Shirley, to the point of spoiling her. He regularly bought her the things she wanted, including the stuffed animal she just had thrown away. As far as I could tell, Shirley hadn't done anything wrong to deserve that. "Shirley, did something happen?" So I asked her.
It's always like this. Always. Nothing happens when Dad is here. But when he's gone, she becomes like a demon, scary. That bad? Sometimes there's no food, and she tore the clothes Dad bought because Shirley is a bad girl.
It seemed Jennifer was jealous of Shirley too. It was obvious to me how much Edward cared for Jennifer. The engagement and wedding rings were from a high-end brand Jennifer wanted, costing a total of $10,000. He never missed giving presents for birthdays or anniversaries. Yet, Jennifer felt she wasn't his #1 priority. In front of Edward, she was a good mother, but without him, she acted like a tyrant.
With Dad, Mom buys me anything and is kind.
I'm scared of getting scolded by Mom, so please keep this a secret.
Shirley is in 2nd grade this year. A young child bearing this alone. Why didn't I notice sooner? Enduring it alone wasn't the solution. I regret focusing solely on my issues. The day I witnessed the harassment, Edward came home past 11 p.m. due to overtime. I resolved to talk to him the next day. But he had to leave on an emergency business trip. With a significant issue at hand, there was no time to talk. While Edward was away, Jennifer invited friends over daily. Birds of a feather flocked together. Her friends didn't find her behavior odd. Jennifer did as she pleased, hosting parties at home. During this time, not only was I neglected, but Shirley wasn't even provided meals. The harassment towards me escalated. I needed to find a way to consult Edward over the phone. But Jennifer sensed my intentions. Don't report to Edward.
It would be troublesome if my position were jeopardized further.
Jennifer took both my mobile phone and Shirley's. I couldn't retrieve them without knowing where they were hidden. Although there's a phone in my own house, I didn't know Edward's cell number. Moreover, with Jennifer often home, we were under constant surveillance. Escaping was difficult, and running away alone would be futile. I had to find a way to rescue Shirley too. I was starting to panic. Jennifer's neglect had become evident. I was cooking for Shirley with groceries I bought with my own money. I took care of all the laundry, walked her to and from lessons, and handled everything from taking out the trash to cleaning. Despite this, Jennifer continued to host parties every day, and if I missed even a day of cleanup, the house would start to smell, affecting Shirley, who has a chronic respiratory condition and needs regular visits to a major hospital for blood tests, X-rays, and other exams, which I accompany her to.
Grandma, are you overdoing it? It's okay, I'll protect you, Shirley.
I hope Dad comes back soon. Seeing Shirley tear up made me realize the urgency of resolving our situation. It had only been 2 months since I moved in. I had quit my part-time job due to the move and wasn't part of any community groups like senior clubs. With my mobile phone taken, I had no means of communication. I had no one to directly consult with. I wasn't even informed how long Edward would be on his business trip. It was the beginning of days filled with despair. 2 months into this life, in February, possibly due to global warming, the year experienced extreme temperature fluctuations. Mental stress likely played a role, but both Shirley and I had been feeling unwell. Sometimes Shirley would skip school.
School is better than home,
she insisted. Then came a day with snowfall said to occur once every 10 years. The day before, I felt unwell as usual and woke up with a fever of 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Shirley seemed to have caught a fever too, struggling even to get up. We had no antipyretic pain relievers at home. It could be a seasonal epidemic. I had heard that using over-the-counter fever reducers could be risky in such cases. Somehow, we needed to get to a pediatrician or an internist. Jennifer had been aware of our ill health but had done nothing. There was no sign she would help this time either. The nearest hospital was about a 10-minute walk. Though Shirley was in 2nd grade, she was taller than her peers. At over 60, I've never been injured, but physically, it was demanding. If only I weren't feverish. Reality remained unchanged despite my wishes. I managed to get Jennifer to call a taxi company. But due to the heavy snow, all were out. And with uncertain wait times, they couldn't dispatch one. How could I get Shirley to the hospital? I had no choice but to rely on Jennifer. After much deliberation, I reached that conclusion.
Please, can you drive us to the hospital?
I pleaded with Jennifer. She seemed to ponder before responding.
All right, but asking me for a favor means you'll need to provide something in return, right?
She said, implying I had to pay her as if she were a taxi. If it meant getting Shirley the care she needed. I had no choice but to agree.
It's not much, but will this do?
I handed Jennifer all I had, $100. She visibly grimaced at the amount, presumably expecting more. It's no surprise the amount was small. I had quit my part-time job. Despite this, I was covering the expenses for Shirley that Jennifer wasn't paying. The $100 was a significant amount for me, but it couldn't be helped. Jennifer, with a look of dissatisfaction, securely placed the $100 in her wallet.
Well, all right.
Hurry up and get ready. Her reluctance was evident, but it seemed she would drive us after all. Unsure when Jennifer might change her mind, I quickly prepared Shirley, who was barely able to stand, and we got into the car. Because of the rush, I was still in my pajamas. Jennifer just looked at her mobile phone while we were getting ready. We set off amidst the heavy snow that blurred our vision. Jennifer's irritated driving came to an abrupt halt halfway to the hospital.
What happened? Did the car break down?
I just remembered I have a spa appointment today. Walk the rest of the way to the hospital.
Come on, get out quickly.
If you won't get out by yourself, I'll make you get out.
Shirley, delirious with fever, and I, confused, couldn't understand what Jennifer was saying and couldn't get up from the car. Apparently displeased by our inability to move, Jennifer came around to the back seat and literally dragged us out of the car.
Now, the nuisances are gone. Good luck making it to the hospital.
Laughing loudly, Jennifer drove away.
Mom, did she really just abandon us?
Even in such a moment, Shirley still regarded her as her mother. With tears in her eyes and a feverish gaze, she watched the car drive away.
Shirley, let's go to the hospital first. We'll deal with Mom later.
My words might not have been very convincing, given I hadn't managed to do anything so far. But that was all I could offer at that moment. The guilt and helplessness I felt towards Shirley nearly made me cry, but I was desperate to hold back the tears. Supporting each other, we managed to reach the hospital.
Mom.
Even while receiving treatment, Shirley mentioned Jennifer. Why must my young granddaughter endure such hardship? My patience had reached its limit. Fortunately, it was the hospital Shirley regularly visited, and they agreed to admit her. Hospital life was more restful than being at home. I realized then how tense I had been. Having recovered a bit both mentally and physically, we were cleared to leave the hospital. It had been 3 days since we were at home. Jennifer's surprised face greeted us upon our return.
Seriously? You're alive?
I thought, what a way to speak, as I shielded Shirley behind me.
Yes, we were properly treated at the hospital.
The worst. I kicked you out because I didn't want this place to become a crime scene. It would have been better if you had just disappeared.
Jennifer was scolding us with a look of disdain. Her face turned pale the next moment, thinking she was alone in facing us.
Jennifer, what are you saying?
The person who came from behind us was Edward.
Edward, why are you here?
Back during our hospital stay, I had made a phone call to a certain person. It was Edward. Since Shirley's hospital had Edward's mobile number as an emergency contact, I asked the hospital to let me call him to report our hospitalization. Being a blood relative allowed the call to go through. Jennifer had been in regular contact with Edward. However, she had not conveyed our health issues. She claimed to be handling all the household chores herself.
It's cold recently, you both should rest well.
Can Jennifer take over for you?
Jennifer isn't here.
Why? Has she left already?
We were supposed to be brought by Jennifer, but she left us on the road.
I reported to Edward everything Jennifer had done to us. including the harassment towards Shirley and the neglect since Edward left.
I can't believe Jennifer would do such a thing, but if you say so, it must be true. I'll hurry back, so please wait a little longer.
Initially, Edward was in denial. My flurry of words made him realize the seriousness of the situation. However, he wanted to see the evidence with his own eyes. I implored him to see for himself and requested he take leave. As promised, Edward managed to finish his work early and came home temporarily.
Jennifer, explain everything. Was what you just said truly what you think?
No, it was just a joke, obviously.
Mom, let's stop this.
Shirley, who had been watching us argue, spoke up. She began to recount the mistreatment she had suffered from Jennifer, choking up with tears at times, with the severity of the actions being too much for an elementary school student.
I can't believe it. I didn't think she was that kind of person. It's not true. Shirley, stop lying.
Edward, usually gentle, had a tense expression. He rushed to console Shirley, who continued to cry. Despite Jennifer's continued denials, I pulled out the diary. Here's the evidence.
This is all written by Carol, right? It's fabricated. In fact, I'm the one being harassed. Please believe me, Edward.
Jennifer clung to Edward's arm, crying. Edward, ignoring Jennifer, started reading my diary. There's more evidence here. Come in, please. I regretted not buying a voice recorder. There was no turning back now. I realized I needed to present irrefutable evidence or Jennifer might manipulate the situation to her advantage. In a move that felt partly like a gamble, I believed there would be physical evidence and let Edward into the house. My hunch was correct. It appeared Jennifer had hosted a party at our home the previous day. The living room was cluttered with empty alcohol containers and uneaten fast food, creating a slight odor, especially since we had been away for 3 days.
So, everything Mom has been saying is true.
I just hadn't gotten around to cleaning up yet.
Jennifer, we need to divorce. I'll take care of Shirley. Edward, cutting off Jennifer's excuses to suggest divorce, seemed to show he wasn't willing to entertain her justifications any longer. Jennifer, faced with the idea of divorce, couldn't accept it, breaking down like a child, incapable of coherent discussion. Right there, Edward called Jennifer's parents to explain the situation over speakerphone, allowing us to hear their reactions. After initial shock, Jennifer's parents sighed deeply and ended the call with continuous apologies to us. Jennifer didn't calm down enough to talk properly after that, only repeating apologies to Edward without once explaining herself to me. It was clear staying there wouldn't change anything. Excluding Jennifer, the 3 of us decided to begin a new life in my standalone home. Edward, still somewhat attached, tried to engage Jennifer in conversation several times afterwards. However, she only ever responded with denials.
It's not true. I'm not at fault.
This infuriated me once more, reminding me of a child's denial.
She wasn't inherently bad. I had hoped if she changed her behavior, we might have a chance again. But it never came to that.
The absence of any change led Edward to decide on divorce. Communication became impossible, so they proceeded with lawyers to finalize it. Shirley initially showed some resistance to the divorce. It's sad for Mom. I think Dad should be with her, despite enduring so much mistreatment herself. Probably, Jennifer's good mother facade in Edward's presence was hard for Shirley to forget. A small act of kindness left a lasting impression. Perhaps, in some ways, Jennifer was pitiable, her life having drastically altered since meeting Edward. Shirley's words allowed me to feel pity for Jennifer for the first time, aside from my anger. However, Edward and I always shower Shirley with the same love. Being with us, where she doesn't have to fear people's faces, must be more comforting for her. Gradually getting used to life in the detached house and feeling secure away from her mother, Shirley began to resolve to distance herself from Jennifer. We were in a position to demand child support and damages, but it seemed Edward couldn't bring himself to do it. Moreover, as Jennifer had been a housewife, she had no savings or income. Thus, we did not pursue any financial claims, and the divorce proceeded without them. Jennifer's parents, having been contacted by Edward, flew in from their rural home, which is quite far from where we live, so it took them some time to arrive. After the divorce was finalized, Jennifer was taken in by her parents, who came to our place to apologize in person for the trouble caused. They even offered me cash as compensation for the inconvenience, particularly towards me. According to Jennifer's parents, she had become mentally unwell after separating from Edward. She had a history of getting deeply involved in her romantic relationships since her student days, sometimes causing trouble or distress to her partners. Each breakup left her deeply depressed, sometimes confining herself at home. She had become somewhat more stable mentally as she began to lead a fulfilling life outside of her personal affairs. But then she met and fell in love with Edward. Edward's kind nature, always trying not to make her feel insecure, was comforting for her. However, she disliked his kindness towards others. All these factors combined led to the current situation. Her parents have since helped her start psychiatric treatment, but recovery seems slow, with Jennifer mostly staying in her room. Hospitalization was considered, but for now, she is being closely monitored at home. At the doctor's suggestion, all of Edward's contact information has been deleted, and he has done the same, so there's no longer any contact between them. I declined to accept the inconvenience money, asking for it to be put towards Jennifer's treatment instead. Edward seems unaware of Jennifer's current situation. We, the parents, debated whether to inform him but decided against it, thinking neither Edward nor Shirley would want to revisit those memories. Especially Shirley, who might think, if only I hadn't been there. The scars Jennifer inflicted during her childhood are too significant. We've decided to keep it among ourselves. Life with Edward and Shirley has begun, and not once have I felt like a burden. I feel sorry that Shirley had to transfer schools, but she insists it doesn't bother her. Edward tries to finish work early and come home. I haven't resumed part-time work, but joined a local seniors exercise club, realizing the importance of community engagement through this ordeal. This has also allowed me to get to know our neighbors. Now, I live modestly happy days with my beloved son and granddaughter.
I got a huge sum of money, and you just got an old house and a mere field?
My brother Robin, who unexpectedly received a large inheritance, mocks me.
To think that this is how they treat their daughter who has always taken care of and nursed them. You must not have been loved.
His words are infuriating, but I don't talk back. Just you wait. I won't let this setback keep me down. Driven by anger towards Robin, I worked hard to restore the neglected field. My name is Carol, a 50-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Justin for 25 years, and our children have all grown up and become independent. I thought we could live a peaceful and enjoyable life together, just the two of us. But life doesn't always go as planned. As soon as our children became independent, I began to take care of our parents. Justin's parents had passed away long ago, so the ones I cared for were my own. My parents, who ran a farm, were always confident in their physical strength and were the picture of health. I often helped them, especially during the harvest season. The freshly picked vegetables were truly delicious. Juicy and sweet vegetables. I fondly remember them because I can no longer savor that taste. My parents couldn't defy aging and had to retire as their legs grew weaker.
I really wanted to continue for longer.
My father Stuart said with a weak smile.
I wish I could let Carol taste those vegetables again.
My mother Olivia expressed her regret.
It would have been great if Robin had taken over.
My father said, feeling down. I have an older brother, Robin, 2 years older than me. Robin has always been irresponsible, acting on a whim and doing whatever he pleases. He barely attended high school and eventually dropped out, claiming it was too much trouble. He left home, never settling into a steady job, working odd jobs here and there, and then would suddenly return home to demand money from our parents. Yet, because he is their son, they couldn't be harsh to him. Robin also stopped visiting the house after our parents quit farming.
There will be no money received from parents living on a pension,
he used to say. If there's no money, he has no business with them. As much as he is my brother, he's the worst. I try to forget such brother exists, but he's still family. Sometimes, even my parents would worry.
I wonder if that child is doing all right,
they would say. But after they quit farming, they aged quickly. Maybe things would have been different if they had continued farming, even just as a hobby. By the time I started regretting it, they had already aged significantly and both became bedridden.
Sorry, Carol. We're causing you trouble.
My apologetic father and mother were met with my smiling denial. I am who I am today because of you both. Let me repay you. As I said this, my mother teared up and thanked me. Taking care of them was hard work, but my children were already independent, and I wasn't working since I was a housewife. I had thought about getting a part-time job once the kids were independent, but we weren't struggling financially, so I could put that off. After discussing with Justin, I decided to stay at my parents' house to take care of them.
I don't think they have much time left.
The shock of hearing this from the doctor was immense. I called Robin, crying.
Won't you come to see our parents?
Irresponsible as he may be, Robin is still my brother. To our parents, he is their beloved son. Surely, Robin remembers being loved by them. That's why I wanted him to see them one last time, but Robin's answer was terrible.
Huh? Why should I?
I'm busy, you know.
Busy? Are you working? Like I'd bother with that.
Yeah, I'm doing day labor.
I worked yesterday, so I thought I might go see some horses today.
Going to see horses? You mean betting on horse racing, right?
As expected, Carol, you know me well.
What are you thinking?
You prioritize gambling over visiting our parents? It's more important to me than life itself.
You're the worst!
Furious at Robin's extremely disappointing behavior, I hung up the phone. After that, Robin never came to visit our parents at all. Day by day, both of them continued to weaken. And then, suddenly, my father passed away, followed by my mother the next day. They were a loving couple until the end. Once I had finished crying, busy time awaited me. Organizing a funeral for both of them was a huge task. With Justin's help and our 2 sons, we somehow managed it. It should have been something to discuss and arrange with Robin, but he never showed up. I managed to contact him, but...
Huh? Our parents' funeral?
I'm busy, I won't come.
Just handle it however on your end.
And with that, he hung up the phone. Handle it however? That's not possible. Even at 52, Robin remains incredibly irresponsible. Angry at Robin, the tearful funeral came to an end. And then, some time later, Robin finally returned to our family home. It was outrageous he didn't even come to the funeral, but the reason for his return was simple. It was to discuss the inheritance.
Hey, Carol, long time no see. You've aged quite a bit.
Leave it alone. You've aged too, Robin.
I'm still younger looking than you, since I'm single and didn't age from raising kids. Maybe I look like your younger brother now?
I was appalled that these were his first words after meeting his sister for the first time in a while. Despite claiming to enjoy his bachelor life, Robin looked significantly aged.
Did you visit their graves? Why would I do such a meaningless thing? Do you think the dead can see that?
It's not about that. I was irritated by Robin's attitude, showing no sense of loss for our parents, but arguing with him was pointless. I decided it was best to get the discussion over with quickly and took my seat.
Well then, let's proceed, please.
I said this to the lawyer present. Indeed, our parents had prepared a proper will. Under the supervision of the lawyer, we began to open the will.
What does it say? What's my share? Hold on a minute.
Robin eagerly leaned in as soon as the envelope was opened. I sighed at his impatience. Before my exasperated gaze, the lawyer spread out the will. As a result, Robin was to inherit cash. I was to inherit the family home and the field, the workplace where our parents had toiled. Upon hearing this, Robin,
Haha. Can you believe that? That's just great, isn't it hilarious?
Bursted out laughing. Cash, it's this statement, right? Wow, $300,000? Is this for real? Amazing. Farming really pays off. Along with the will, there was a bank account statement kept by the lawyer. It was indeed a significant amount. For Robin, who never had a steady job and lived day to day, this was a fortune. I was also a bit surprised to learn such an amount was left behind. Though they worked hard, my parents, whose hobbies and entertainment were farming, probably didn't have much use for money.
And? What about you, Carol?
With a mocking smile, Robin looked at me, still laughing. His question revealed his unpleasant character, even though he had heard the contents of the will. This house and the field.
Ha ha ha. Really?
Robin, holding his stomach, laughed heartily. Patience, just be patient. I reminded myself desperately, trying to contain my anger.
I get a huge sum of money, and you just get an old house and a mere field.
Robin said amidst his intense laughter.
This is how they treat their daughter who took care of and nursed them? You weren't loved at all.
I felt my blood boil but somehow managed to hold back. Arguing here would be meaningless. Indeed, the value of this house and field combined doesn't come close to the cash amount Robin inherited. Our parents wanted me to keep this house and field, our family home. So, I must endure. I know better than anyone that my parents loved me.
Well, the eldest son is always loved, right? And I was the favorite son. I can understand why our parents felt that way.
Finally stopping his laughter, Robin flaunted the bank account statement right in front of my eyes. So, that's how it is. I'm taking this with me. As if it was that simple. I didn't want any disputes over the inheritance later. The lawyer had prepared the documents, so Robin signed them and left. The moment Robin was out of sight,
Never come back!
I shouted. I'll forget about Robin. Likely, I'll never meet him again. Forgetting such a despicable person is best, a realization that came to me a year after my parents passed away. After completing various inheritance documents and procedures, and as I was clearing out the now empty family home, time seemed to fly by. Now, the once busy family home was empty. I have a house built by Justin, and to live here, as Robin said, is too old-fashioned. Maybe I should sell it sensibly. But the thought of losing my childhood home feels sad. Lost in these thoughts, I sat in the empty house. Suddenly, my eyes caught sight of a hoe in the garden. In this day and age, it's rare to use a hoe. Yet, my father preferred to use it. Stored out of reach during my childhood for safety. The iron part was now completely rusted and the handle severely decayed. It barely retained its original shape, but I touched it gently. What came to mind was the image of my father joyfully working in the fields, sweating, with my mother laughing beside him. Those were nostalgic, dearly cherished times. Quietly closing my eyes and indulging in these memories, I opened them with resolve and decided. All right. Farming? Yeah. Well, it's more like an extension of home gardening, a hobby. Isn't that nice? Having inherited the field, I thought to try something with it. When I discussed it with Justin, he easily agreed. Really? It's the field your parents left behind, you should try it. I couldn't be more grateful for Justin's support. With advice from a farmer acquaintance of my father, I began tending to the neglected field. I tried growing the same vegetables my father did, as well as experimenting with new varieties. It turned out to be a challenging task.
Farming is hard.
I had some experience with home gardening. But this was a whole different level. Not just the vastness of it, but also because these weren't just vegetables for personal consumption. Doing it seriously is this tough. Reviving the depleted soil alone was a challenge. Deciding on the right vegetables for the soil was tough. What about the seasons? The pests? Wild birds, too, turned out to be adversaries. Not only did I have to grow the crops, but I also had to think about protective measures. The work didn't progress easily, and I encountered many failures.
I can't believe you're doing all this. As a rich man like me, it's unimaginable.
That was Robin, who had called just to look down on me. Somehow, he had heard that I had started farming and called to comment. As usual, his words were discouraging, so I quickly hung up. Forget it. I have to forget that. Channeling my anger towards Robin into motivation, I tirelessly worked on the field. Farming equipment, even secondhand, was expensive, but I considered it a necessary investment and used my savings. It's your savings, so I won't say anything. The generous Justin said that to me. Although it was my savings, any money I had from before I was married was long gone, and what I used was really money Justin had given me for my allowance, saved over time. Even so, Justin didn't mind and supported me, which moved me to tears. I fell in love with him all over again. My sons also helped, researching on the internet and sharing information with me. The farmers who were acquaintances of my father were all kind people. Apart from the infuriating Robin, I was truly in a blessed environment, which allowed me to focus on farming. What started as a hobby quickly became a passion, and I got serious about it. I guess I really am my parents' daughter. As I thought this, time passed by. And then, I did it. Finally, the first harvest from my field. Though the produce wasn't as succulent and sweet as my parents', the yield was modest. What mattered was that I had accomplished it. I felt satisfied. Hey, not bad for a first-timer. Those encouraging words came from Mike, a farmer who had been a great help. He had always been concerned about the condition of my field. Mike's praise, reminiscent of a man about the same age as my father, deeply touched my heart. Adjust the amount of fertilizer and water a bit more. Ah yes, Stuart used to use that particular fertilizer. There was still so much I didn't know. Gathering every bit of information I could, I was determined to get closer to replicating my parents' tastes. Gradually, the field became more impressive. What started as a small corner was now a fully tended field. Days of trial and error with various crops. Gradually, the quality of the vegetables I grew improved, and eventually.
Wow, another bountiful year.
Thank you.
Please continue to supply to us.
Of course, thank you very much.
My vegetables had reached a point where they could be sold. I even gained a favored business partner. A TV station even came to do a feature on me, a housewife who started farming and found success. Before I knew it, the vegetables I grew had become popular. But I couldn't have done it alone. Many people helped me, and above all, it was the wisdom my father had passed on to me. Yet, there was still much to do. I was far from achieving the taste of my father's produce. As I clenched my fist, determined to work harder, that's when I heard it.
What's this all about?
A voice I thought I had pushed to the edge of my memory. As I was about to head to the field, I heard the forgotten voice and turned around.
Robin!
It had been years. I could barely recognize him as Robin, but there was still a semblance of him. It wasn't just aging.
Robin, you've changed so much.
Yeah, I'm shining, right? But forget that. Noticing my gaze fixed on his head, Robin yelled angrily. However, his anger didn't frighten me at all. It's almost laughable. I want to laugh. But I knew laughing would only make things more complicated, so I desperately tried to hold it back. My cheeks were trembling, trying to suppress a smile.
What brings you here, Robin? It's been a long time. I thought we would never meet again.
I never expected Robin to visit the family home again. Robin pointed to the house standing tall behind me.
What is this?
He yelled.
What do you mean?
It's the house where you were born and raised.
I know that. But it used to be dirtier. Why is it so clean now?
Indeed, the once old and dirty house I had considered selling had been refurbished and was now quite beautiful.
Why? Because I had it repaired.
Where did you get the money for that?
I earned it.
How?
I wish he wouldn't yell every time. Although we are approaching our 60s, my hearing is still fine.
You know I started farming, right? The vegetables I grew on the field I inherited became popular, and the business is thriving.
What?
After many struggles and hard work, my business had finally taken off. And then Robin showed up. I had a bad feeling, and as expected, Robin began to insinuate.
So, that field had great value, huh?
Huh? What are you talking about?
There's no way a complete amateur like you could run a profitable farming business so easily.
Of course, it wasn't easy at all.
That land must have been golden soil, right?
He completely disregarded all the hard work I'd put in. And what's this about golden soil?
It must have been incredibly nutrient-rich, powerful soil, right? You knew that and kept quiet.
No, what are you talking about?
I know the law. If a property is later found to be more valuable, the inheritance can be redivided. I'm going to file an objection. We'll redo the inheritance division, and I'll take the field.
Are you stupid?
Yes, I'm stupid. I mean, no, I'm not.
Honestly, he is being stupid. I don't know where he got his information, but flaunting such superficial knowledge is just foolish. Sighing deeply.
The value of the field hasn't changed.
I said.
Liar!
Why would I lie? If you doubt it, why don't you have a real estate agent or someone appraise the land?
You said it, then I'll do just that. You'll regret this.
I won't. The land prices around here haven't changed much since the beginning.
Really?
If you doubt it, ask a real estate agent, like I said.
Robin's confidence seemed to wane as I firmly stated this. His face began to cloud over with doubt.
But you're actually making a profit, right? It's because of the field, right?
Because of the field.
Look, yes, I started farming because I had that land, and as a result, it's been profitable.
See, I told you so.
Ah, he's so annoying. I was gradually getting fed up with Robin's complete misunderstanding.
All right, enough.
Fed up with the conversation, I shouted dismissively.
Fine. Robin can use half of the field. Do whatever you like with it.
Yeah.
Robin, as if he had achieved complete victory, thrust his fist into the air. But despite my dismissive shout, I was quite calm inside. Well, let him try. Robin never helped with the farming when our parents were around. I wondered how he would approach it. I'll be watching closely.
Help me.
Wow, that was quick. It had only been a month since Robin started farming. I divided the field in half and let Robin use the barren part, but he gave up within just a month and came asking for help.
Huh? Help with what?
I have no clue what to do.
I thought as much. The field was poorly maintained, with no preparation for planting whatsoever. What had he been doing this past month?
It's strange, isn't it? This field is supposed to be golden soil, right? I sowed seeds, but why aren't they growing properly?
Still on about the golden soil, huh? And thinking that just sowing seeds is enough? If it was that easy to grow delicious crops, everyone would be doing it.
You need to study more.
Maybe in a few years, it might become profitable? I was about to dismiss him, but then Robin, looking like he might cry, pleaded with me. Please, no snotty tears.
Help me out. You're my sis, right?
I don't want to think of someone who couldn't even come to our parents' final moments as a brother.
Don't start calling me sis just because you need something. I coldly brushed him off, and Robin hung his head right there.
I'm already busy with my own field. I got here with the help of many people. You should work hard and become someone who can also receive help. Like I said earlier, you need to persevere for a few years, and then.
I can't afford to be leisurely about this.
I was about to leave Robin, who showed no willingness to try, but then he looked at me with a serious expression.
I can't wait years or even months. I'm on the brink of a debt repayment deadline.
He shouted.
Debt. Yes. I have huge debts.
Why? You inherited $300,000 in cash, right?
I spent it.
What? I poured it all into gambling, and now it's all gone. What?
I hated the idea of working again, so I tried to make a big win with loans, but that's gone too. Then I heard you were making money from farming, so I thought I'd try it too. But why isn't it working for me? Why am I not making any money?
How should I know?
I was astounded and lost for words. Robin had squandered the significant inheritance from our parents in just a few years. And now he thought he could easily make money from farming? It was ridiculous.
Carol, please, I'm begging you to help.
I refuse. No matter how much Robin pleaded, I couldn't bring myself to help him. Maybe if he had shown some determination to try on his own, I might have offered some assistance. But Robin was always relying on others. His irresponsibility unchanged.
Please, help me. The debt collectors are coming soon.
I left Robin shouting and walked away from the field. I don't know what became of him after that. I heard rumors that he was being chased by debt collectors. But nothing beyond that. Eventually, the field returned to my care. The farming, now on a larger scale, was going well. Justin, who helped on his days off, massaged my shoulders as I worked.
Maybe I could join you in farming after I retire?
Justin had recently suggested this. And it made me very happy. Our sons also seemed quite interested, maybe they'll join in too. The house and field protected by my father and loved by my mother. I wonder if my parents would be pleased to see them come back to life.
Dad, Mom, I'll keep taking care of the field.
Aiming to recreate the delicious vegetables they grew, I'll keep working hard. So please, both of you, watch over us.
Grandma, this is Mia.
Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly ushered them inside the house. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and my daughter-in-law, Chloe, was in good spirits, eagerly asking how the two had met.
Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee.
Chloe's mood had soured just minutes earlier. The reason was Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. Chloe showed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding.
We're serious about making this work. We know we're young, but please, allow us to marry.
Both were sincerely asking for their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. However, Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face.
A shotgun wedding is so tacky. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?
Suddenly turned to me.
What?
I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way.
Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't necessarily mean marriage is a must.
Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction.
But, you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's something Kevin and Mia have decided together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think?
Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go. Evelyn, get me a refill, please. She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed.
Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What?
Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later.
So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting.
Chloe said reflectively, then turned towards me in the kitchen.
Now that we're going to be living as a family, we won't be needing a housekeeper anymore. Can you leave?
What?
The sudden words from Chloe took everyone by surprise. My son Charles, Kevin, and Mia were all left speechless.
What am I supposed to do now?
My name is Evelyn. I'm a 70-year-old grandmother. I live with my only son Charles, his wife Chloe, and their family in a 2-generation home. Though it may seem happy from the outside, I've felt somewhat downcast since losing my husband a few years ago. Chloe, my son's wife, is outspoken and tends to say whatever comes to her mind, and while we're not on bad terms, I've felt her using me for convenience. When Chloe goes out with friends, she takes for granted that I'll do the household chores and even asks me to drive her to the station. Chloe seems to think living together in a 2-generation home is her way of showing filial piety. Contrary to my wish for a quiet life after my husband's death, I find myself entangled in a complicated situation.
Come on, get up already.
From the bedroom of my son and his wife, Chloe's almost shrieking voice can be heard. Ah, she seems to be in a bad mood again. Though Charles was working till late last night, he was woken up at the usual time on his day off and hurried to get ready to go out. I quietly spoke to Charles when I encountered him in the washroom.
Charles, are you okay?
I'm fine, got about 5 hours of sleep. Charles smiled gently at me through the mirror while drying his face with a towel. Lately, Charles has been looking pale, and I've been worried. Despite my concerns, Charles would brush it off with, "I'm fine," which was something my husband used to say. He kept working until one day, he suddenly collapsed and passed away. That memory is always with me, and I wish Charles could rest more on his days off. Loud footsteps approached. Chloe appears at the bathroom, frowning and visibly annoyed.
How long are you going to wash your face? Hurry up, I'll be late for my meeting with friends.
I'm sorry, I'll change right away.
The meek Charles quickly left to change his clothes. Meanwhile, Chloe turned to me and handed over a note.
Evelyn, this is the shopping list for today.
Yes, I got it. Have fun with your friends.
The weather seems nice today. Please wash the bed sheets as well.
Chloe left without waiting for my reply. After watching her brazen departure, I sighed deeply. Even when my husband was alive, Chloe had always been bold in speaking her mind to us. In the beginning of our living together, "Don't hold back," I had said to Chloe, but as time went on, her aggressive nature became more apparent. Cooking, which Chloe disliked, fell to me. If she disliked a dish, she would push the plate away saying,
"I told you I can't eat this, didn't I?"
Or she would complain about wrinkles in the laundry I had folded. Still, since she was chosen by my son Charles, I tried to keep a quiet smile and avoid causing trouble, but since my husband passed, Chloe's attitude has become more extreme, tiring my spirit.
Evelyn, you're staying home all day, right? Make sure the bath is ready for me when I get back.
Chloe said this without even looking at me as she left the house. Chloe goes out with her friends almost every week. Since the beginning of her marriage, she has seldom done housework or childcare, focusing more on her appearance and spending freely. She's very sociable, making acquaintances in various places. There were many instances that could have led to suspicions of infidelity when Chloe was younger, but Charles, she wouldn't do that. Trusted her without a doubt, so I didn't pursue it. I was surprised to see Charles, looking sleepy as he entered with his hands full of confectionery boxes upon returning from seeing off Chloe.
Oh, this?
It's for Chloe's class reunion next week. She's planning to give them out.
Really? All of this?
Chloe doesn't want to be embarrassed. She keeps saying she doesn't want people to think we're living with our parents because we're struggling for money. I'm sorry, but just let her do as she pleases.
Of course, it's all right, don't worry. Sitting in the chair, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. Eventually, I took the list Chloe had given me and went out for the shopping. My familiar shoes felt heavier than usual. Perhaps due to my age, I often feel a dull pain in my knees with every step. Yet, imagining Chloe's likely snide remarks about wasting gas, I gently stroked my knees, encouraging them to keep going. Returning home, sweating and carrying shopping bags in both hands. I set down the bags at the entrance and stretched my bent back when my grandson Kevin appeared.
Oh, Grandma, welcome back.
No wonder you weren't home, you went out shopping. Kevin frowned slightly as he looked at the groceries I had bought. Kevin, the only son of Charles and Chloe, had become less visible around the house since starting his job last spring. Though we live together, he's often busy with work, coming home late and leaving early in the morning. And on his days off, he dresses up and goes out. It's rare for Kevin to be at home during the daytime on a weekend. Before I could even take off my shoes, Kevin took the shopping bags to the kitchen and began putting things away quickly. I glimpsed his expression and sensed a happy atmosphere.
Did something good happen?
Kevin smiled as he carefully placed eggs from a carton into the refrigerator.
Actually, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'm thinking of bringing her home next week.
Introduce someone? As I processed what that meant, I realized my grandson had reached the age for such things. Introduce someone? Could it be what I'm thinking? It might be.
Grandma, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time.
Something you've been thinking about?
Yes. I can't talk about it just yet, but I promise I will someday.
But first, would you meet the person I want to introduce? Kevin spoke with excitement, and I couldn't help but smile. I was curious about what he had been thinking about, but more so about the kind of woman he would bring home. Growing up, Kevin had never brought a girlfriend home. His absence from home since starting his job, I realized, might have been due to dating. For the first time in a while, I forgot about the usual annoyances and hummed a tune while cleaning. Of course, I had informed Chloe and Charles about this matter, but Charles only muttered, "Marriage, huh?" while Chloe seemed unamused. On their next day off, Kevin brought the woman he wanted to introduce to our home. Chloe had asked me to clean up the front of the house, and while I was sprinkling water, I became a bit wary when an unfamiliar car stopped, but seeing my grandson waving from the driver's seat with a smile, I felt relieved. The car was a rental. Perhaps Kevin had gone to the trouble of renting a car to pick her up. I almost laughed inwardly, thinking Kevin must be quite smitten.
Grandma, this is Mia.
I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my grandson's happy face as he introduced the woman next to him. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly led the two inside. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and Chloe, in a good mood, eagerly asked how the two had become acquainted. Chloe and Charles sat at a table set for four, facing Kevin and Mia, while I prepared coffee for everyone in the kitchen.
Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee.
Chloe's mood had turned sour just minutes before. The reason was that Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. The previously warm atmosphere froze in an instant, with Kevin showing a seriousness which he usually does not. Chloe displayed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding.
We're serious about making this work. We might be young, but please, allow us to marry.
Both were earnestly asking their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. Watching Kevin plead before his parents, I felt tears welling up. Of course, we support your marriage. For the baby's sake, it's better to marry soon and settle down mentally.
Thanks, Dad,
Kevin said with a smile, looking at Mia. Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face.
Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Can you even explain how this happened, Mia?
Taken aback by such an unexpected question, Mia was surprised.
What?
And looked down at the table. Kevin quickly placed his hand on her shoulder. Times have changed, this kind of marriage isn't unusual anymore. Besides, we have our own ways of thinking and are ready to work hard.
Kevin, you offered to marry because Mia got pregnant, didn't you? Are you sure this is a well-thought-out decision? Our relationship was serious from the start, aiming for marriage. It just happened that the baby gave us a good opportunity. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?
Chloe suddenly turned to me.
What?
I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Recalling a TV segment on single mothers we watched as a family recently, indeed. Having a baby doesn't necessarily lead to marriage, but this situation seemed different. Yes, it's true.
Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't mean marriage is a must.
Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. So, I had prepared my next words carefully, thinking I'd proudly tell Kevin about it later.
But, you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's a decision made by Kevin and Mia together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think?
An old person making irresponsible statements.
What would she say next? Everyone probably wondered, but Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go.
Evelyn, get me a refill, please.
She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed.
Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later.
So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting.
Chloe said wistfully, then turned to face me, who was standing in the kitchen.
Since the family will be living together from now on, can we ask you, the no longer needed housekeeper, to leave?
What?
My son is getting married, and we want to live with just our cherished family from now on.
Charles, taken aback by Chloe's sudden words, and both Kevin and Mia were left speechless in shock.
Once Kevin's child is born, they'll likely live here for a while, right? We don't want to trouble you with the baby's night crying.
No, I'm fine with that. If there's anything I can do.
I can't think of any advantage to living with someone who's likely to become a care-dependent elderly. You're no longer needed, so could you please leave?
Feeling as if my heart was being torn out, I didn't want to worry Kevin and the others, so
You're absolutely right.
Tried to smile bravely. At that time, I didn't take Chloe's words seriously. But day by day, Chloe's efforts to drive me out of the house became more blatant.
Please leave as soon as possible.
she kept on saying so. When I consulted with Charles, the timid man could only hold his head and stay silent. What was especially shocking was the realization that Chloe was almost entirely in control of the inheritance from my husband, including the house. My husband, being a man of small desires, had left everything to our son Charles with the intention that all his property would be passed on to him. Effectively, I had no assets or property of my own. And since Charles was under Chloe's thumb, I was stunned to find myself stripped of both my home and inheritance.
What should I do now?
I murmured while looking through old albums of my late husband and I in the middle of the night. He was always gentle, never angry, just calm. Was it his nature that allowed Chloe to become so selfish? If so, I felt like the cause was both my husband and myself. Months passed. Despite the daily harassment from Chloe, unable to leave, I lived enduring it all. One day, while I was taking a shower, the water suddenly turned cold. I worried it was broken, but it seemed Chloe had turned off the water heater's power. Thinking she probably didn't know I was in the bath, I turned the power back on, but it was immediately turned off again. Realizing it was harassment.
Could you not turn off the power while I'm bathing?
I asked.
It's a waste of electricity.
Only to be shouted at. There were even times in the dead of winter when I had to rinse off with cold water. Exhausted, I consulted Charles.
Could you bathe while Chloe is out?
But he could only weakly suggest. Wondering how he became so spineless, I sighed in disbelief. Even as Chloe said with a snide smile every time we met.
Please rent an apartment and live there as soon as possible.
I was powerless to do anything. Amidst these oppressive days, a piece of bright news was brought in. Mia had finally given birth to a healthy baby. For a moment, Chloe and I celebrated wholeheartedly, tears in our eyes as we laughed together.
Now, if only you'd leave the house quickly, I'd truly be happy.
Chloe's smile suddenly turned cold as she spoke to me. I doubted the woman's character before me. Charles looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the newspaper, as if he had nothing to do with it. Though Chloe was the one who strongly wished for Kevin and his wife to stay at our home, she wanted nothing to do with the baby's care. I did everything I could to help Mia, who always deeply thanked me despite being overwhelmed with caring for the baby. Thank you so much for everything. Don't worry about it. You're going through the hardest time right now, and if there's anything I can do to help, I will. That was a heartfelt sentiment from me. After a particularly busy few months, Kevin suddenly said to me,
I have something important to tell you.
I'm listening. I responded while preparing dinner in the kitchen. Without stopping my chopping, I waited for Kevin to speak.
Grandma, I want to talk to you alone. There's a place I want you to come to this Sunday. Let's keep it a secret from Mom and Dad.
My hand holding the knife stopped. A secret from Chloe. When I looked at Kevin, he had a subtle smile as if trying to hide his joy. It was a look he often had as a child when he was plotting something secretly to make me happy. Kevin had always been close to me and my late husband since he was little. Looking back, maybe Chloe felt that her only son's affections were being stolen by me and my husband. That wouldn't have been fun for Chloe. Probably that feeling continues, and Kevin realized that when I'm with Chloe, I feel intimidated and can't speak my mind. I felt dearly loved by my kind grandson and his wife. Next Sunday, Kevin, Mia, and the baby led me to a newly built apartment, about a 10-minute walk from our house. Kevin shared that he had purchased this apartment before the baby was born as we walked. I was deeply surprised by his decisiveness to buy it without consulting Chloe, who had strongly suggested living together.
Sorry for making you walk, Grandma.
I need to strengthen my legs anyway. This distance is nothing.
I lightly tapped my thin legs. Though just a 10-minute walk made my knees ache, I resolved not to mention it. The new apartment room was furnished simply, with boxes in the corner, presumably belonging to Mia, who used to live alone before she got married. Kevin, familiar with the place, started making coffee in the kitchen, while Mia was putting the baby to sleep in another room.
So, there's something I wanted to ask you.
Kevin began speaking seriously after a brief pause. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed unusually loud.
Would you live with us?
I was so surprised by the sudden proposal that I nearly dropped my mug. Kevin looked at me earnestly. Thinking it was a joke, I returned a strained smile, and Kevin looked away distantly.
Ever since I was a child, I couldn't stand seeing Mom treating you so badly.
Well, your mom has a bit of a strong personality, but
you're always being told to leave the house, aren't you? Dad won't talk back, and I can't stand to see you being treated so poorly by Mom anymore.
What are you talking about? I'm being treated fine.
Remember when I said I had someone I wanted to introduce to you? I've been thinking about something for a long time.
I vaguely remembered such a conversation. It was a while ago, but I distinctly remembered Kevin speaking with an implication of determination when he talked about getting married.
I've been cherished by you and Grandpa since I was little, and I loved both of you. But somehow, I felt Mom was very rude towards you too. I've always watched the two of you and thought that when I grew up, I wanted to help. Kevin, did you really think that way?
Kevin leaned forward decisively, looking into my eyes.
Let's live together. There's no need for you to suffer alone in that house.
Unable to respond, Mia quietly returned and sat next to Kevin. Mia seemed to have listened to the conversation from the next room and looked at me solemnly, understanding the context. Kevin told me about it. Would it be possible for you to live with us? That's a very kind offer. I'm truly happy. But I don't want to intrude on your newlywed life. That's not a problem at all. We need your help as an experienced parent, and it would be reassuring to have you live with us. And apparently, Mia had also been subjected to Chloe's harassment, feeling disgusted with her. Mia had been scorned for having a shotgun wedding and had been yelled at to quiet the baby during night crying. Initially, Mia had wanted to move back to her parents' house after giving birth, but
so you hate being with me, I understand.
Chloe would say so every time, and Mia was tired of explaining.
We're asking you. Please, would you live with us?
Kevin and Mia pleaded together. Silently watching them, I felt tears streaming down my face.
Thank you.
At that moment, no other words came to mind. Thus, it was decided that I would live with Kevin and his family. Of course, this news would soon reach Chloe's ears. As soon as I agreed to move in, Kevin apparently contacted Chloe and Charles. This was something I had asked Kevin to do. I was certain Chloe would strongly oppose to it. Telling myself this was my final battle, I left Kevin and his family at the apartment and headed home, opening the front door. As soon as I returned, Chloe summoned me to the living room and began yelling at me furiously.
What do you mean you're going to live with Kevin? You're joking, right?
No.
I'm grateful for Kevin's offer and I've decided to accept it. You're kidding, right?
Chloe scoffed. Beside her, Charles frowned, his face troubled.
Moving in with a newlywed couple? That doesn't sound sane. It's obvious you'll be a burden to Kevin.
I was worried about that too. But both of them have accepted me. I want to honestly accept their feelings.
How could this be happening? You say something too, will you?
Until then, Charles had been silent, now staring at Chloe with a vacant look in his eyes. His gaze was powerless, his body seemed to slump. Chloe, I want a divorce.
What? What is it with you all of a sudden?
I can't take this life anymore. Charles, usually quiet, raised his voice, causing Chloe to step back in surprise. He stood up, confronted Chloe directly, and glared at her with intense eyes.
I can't continue with you. Not just your attitude towards me, but what you've done to Mom all this time, I could never forgive. What the heck? You're not used to getting angry, don't start now. The problem here right now is about Evelyn living with Kevin, isn't it? Mom is going to live with Kevin. That's the end of that discussion. Now, it's about you and me. I can't live with you anymore. Why is this suddenly coming up? I've been tolerating your attitude because Mom put up with it. But if Mom's moving out to live with Kevin, that's a different story. Now it's about you and me. I want to divorce you for all the suspicious acts and alleged affairs since we were young. I haven't done anything like that.
Chloe, unusually flustered, looked away, her eyes darting around. Charles was gentle, but when he got angry as a child, he was unstoppable. Probably, Chloe had never seen Charles angry. When he did get angry, he would meticulously prepare to thoroughly defeat his opponent. As expected, Charles casually pulled out a large brown envelope from his company bag and spread its contents messily on the table. It was a report from an infidelity investigation conducted years ago, proving Chloe's affair without needing to read the details. Chloe was speechless and slumped into her seat. Without another word, Charles returned to his room. I noticed the living room curtains fluttering. So, the window was open. Feeling the gentle breeze coming through the window, I wondered if our embarrassing conversation had been overheard by the neighbors and massaged my temples.
Chloe, I can't say anything about you and Charles, but I hope you two can talk it through properly.
Chloe just sat there silently, not answering. Then, it came to a lawsuit because Chloe refused to divorce, but the investigation into the affair was the final blow, and the divorce was finalized. I heard rumors that Chloe didn't change her aggressive self even after the divorce, and people gradually distanced themselves from her, leading her to live lonely days. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already been living with Kevin and the others for 6 months now. I was feeling happy every day, helping with the care of my great-grandchild. Then one day,
Grandma, Dad's here.
Returning from a walk with my great-grandchild, Charles was sitting in the apartment living room with a serious expression on his face. Seeing my son's face for the first time in 6 months since I left the house, he seemed somewhat healthier. After laying down the great-grandchild I was holding to bed, I smiled at Charles.
Have you been able to sleep since the divorce?
Thanks to you, I've been getting about 8 hours.
Charles said this with a brighter expression than I had ever seen before. That's right, my son was someone who used to show such innocent smiles. Even though he has aged and grown a beard, I couldn't help but reminisce about his youthful appearance and laugh bitterly at the comparison to his present self.
So, what brings you here today? Don't tell me you want to live with us?
Well, that's actually why I came. Of course, I'll contribute to the new home expenses as well.
Of course. You're now able to properly manage your finances after the divorce.
I've already settled things with Kevin and Mia. We're thinking of purchasing this apartment with the inheritance left by Dad, who passed away, in a way that the two of them would agree with. And from now on, I'll be able to protect you, Mom.
Originally, Charles was timid by nature but never was a weak man. I'm sure it was the result of him carefully considering his future and taking action after the divorce from Chloe. I looked at my son, my grandson, Mia, and my great-grandchild in turn and closed my eyes. The image of my late husband appeared behind my eyelids. With a peaceful expression.
Isn't that wonderful?
It seemed like my late husband was smiling. What's so wonderful about it? You've put me through so much trouble. If you had lived a little longer, maybe I would have been happier. Thinking this, I then reconsidered. My current happiness is thanks to Kevin and Mia, who wished for my happiness. My gratitude towards these two cannot be fully expressed in words. Suddenly, my great-grandchild started crying as if a fire had been lit, and I quickly rushed to the bed and picked him up. After rocking him a few times, my great-grandchild fell completely at ease in my arms and started breathing softly in sleep. I'm Vivian, 27 years old, and a pregnant woman about to give birth soon. My husband Bobby is 3 years older than me, a bit selfish, but I've always relied on him as I'm indecisive. However, being pregnant made me realize that boyfriends and husbands are different, and so are husbands and fathers. As a boyfriend, I appreciated him taking the lead, but as a married couple, it felt different. He just wouldn't listen to others. Whenever I gave an opinion, he would negate it, insisting he was always right. And now, as I'm trying to change into a mom, he still hasn't quite become a husband. He seems to hold the reins in our relationship. His values are, frankly, quite outdated. Sure, some couples work well that way. I've heard that was how it used to be. Husbands would earn a lot, allowing wives to focus solely on housework and childcare. But his salary isn't something to brag about. In fact, I was earning more before my maternity leave. I kept quiet about it though, to avoid upsetting him. He spends as much as he has, so we still keep our savings separate. I've been saving bit by bit, so I can manage the expenses even during maternity leave, something he doesn't seem to grasp. He probably thinks he's supporting me with his income alone. Likely, it's the influence of his parents. His mother has always been a housewife, with his father as the sole earner. That's fine. Both of his parents respect each other. I got that impression when I met them. A wife supporting her husband, and a husband supporting his wife, made it work. In our case, Bobby seems to look down on me. I don't mind him emulating Fael, but I wish he'd learn how to treat his wife as well. When Emael, Wallace, gave birth, Fael supported her as best he could and was proactive in childcare. Even at our first meeting, they seemed like a great couple, the kind I wanted us to be. With my due date being around Christmas, I wonder whether we should go to the in-laws' house. Then, an incident occurred at the end of the year, just before giving birth. In the afternoon, Bobby called from work.
Today's the last day of work before the holiday, so after I'm done, my colleagues will come over for drinks. Wait a minute, my due date is soon, right? You can't predict when the baby will come, at least go out to drink somewhere else.
Faced with this unbelievable suggestion, I was at a loss for words.
What? Are you trying to annoy me? I've already told my colleagues. Don't embarrass me. You always said, don't bring anyone over at the last minute. I told you first thing in the morning. Mom said she gave birth to me 2 days after her due date, and my sister was born a week late. So, a due date is just a guideline. That varies from person to person. Sure, a due date is just a prediction, but we need to be cautious around that time.
That's exactly what Wallace said when I announced my pregnancy. But she also said, "It would be so much easier if babies would just listen to us before they're born." Bobby, apparently not paying attention to that, continued after a click of his tongue.
So, I'll stay home when the due date comes. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse to tie me down. I didn't see your messages today, so clean the house by the time I get back. It was messy when I left this morning. Don't embarrass me, and prepare food and drinks, okay? Remember to keep your promises. Wait, I'm pregnant. I can't even clean up. Remember I asked you to do it yesterday? The mess was because you didn't clean up.
He seemed to recall and then got angry.
You're a housewife, right? You're being supported, so don't make me do housework. Just do it already.
Saying that, he hung up. The mess he was referring to was actually made by him yesterday. He had brought colleagues home just before returning once before. I did ask him to inform me in the morning, but I never expected him to do this, especially not so close to the due date. My belly weighs about 3 kilos now, putting pressure on my organs. You wouldn't understand unless you've been through it. I didn't understand until I got pregnant. My sister-in-law, who's already had a baby, keeps in touch frequently. I feel blessed to share these hardships with her. Wallace reminisces about the past and brings things I need, and Fael helps out too. The in-laws' house is really nice. The baby in my belly, perhaps worried about me, kicks me repeatedly. It felt like a sign not to comply with his demands. So, I called his office. The person who answered passed the call to him.
Hello, Bobby? It's impossible today. My belly's been kicked so much, I just can't move.
What? Don't call for something like that. I'll drink at a colleague's place then. Don't call the office again. It's embarrassing, cut it out. At least clean up. If you don't, it's divorce, understand?
All I could hear was the cold electronic tone in my ear. I couldn't believe he was this terrible. Lately, he has been using divorce as a threat for everything. He thinks I'm afraid of divorce now that we have a baby. He uses it to make me anxious. According to him, it's discipline. The only reasons I haven't divorced him are the possibility of change after the baby's birth and the in-laws' presence. How can someone from such a good family turn out like this? Knowing Sael, it's definitely not the parents-in-law's upbringing. It must be his friend's influence. At our wedding, one of his friends said, "Keep your wife in check." After that, he started acting more arrogantly towards me. Since the wedding, he has been acting even more bossy towards me. Just then, the phone rang at the perfect time, and I answered it.
Hello, Vivian, how are you feeling?
Wallace, it's not my body, it's my mood that's terrible.
Wallace sounded a bit panicked over the phone.
The due date is Christmas, right? You might feel like you have a lot to do, but prioritize your baby and yourself first.
Thank you. But the problem isn't that. I'm sorry to say, but I might end up divorcing. I don't want to part from you guys, but I've reached my limit with this incident.
I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Wallace sounded frantic on the other end.
What happened all of a sudden? Can you explain?
Bobby called earlier, saying he's bringing colleagues home tonight. He told me to clean up and buy drinks and prepare. If I can't do that, he said it's divorce. So, I guess there's no other choice but to divorce. I've been threatened like this for a while now.
Even the usually cheerful Wallace was silent, listening.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice. Bobby told me you were going to give birth near your parents' home.
What? I'm not at my parents', I'm at our house.
I didn't understand why he would lie about that, but her response clarified it.
That's why I've been giving him money every day, as he said he could eat properly. I should have taught him housework to reduce your burden. That's my responsibility too.
No, she did teach him. It's clear from how Sael is. He just chose to escape. Even Fael does the household himself.
Really? I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I almost became an ungrateful wife without knowing the situation.
No, it's our fault too. If you're not at your parents', we're neglectful parents. We should have helped more. When he gets drunk, he won't get away with it. I'll give him a piece of my mind next time.
I was relieved to have a mother-in-law who would stand up for her son's wife like this.
Thank you. I'm really happy I can rely on you, Wallace. You're like a real mom to me now.
I lost my mother early, so her friendliness meant a lot to me.
I'm feeling okay for now, so I'll try to clean up. I'll order the drinks for delivery and take a break once it's done. Don't push yourself too hard. If anything happens, I'll come right away.
After I finished cleaning and was taking a break, he came back home. The party was mostly his colleagues being considerate, but a drunk Bobby started giving orders.
Hey, we're out of drinks, bring some more.
As he said this, a colleague went to get them, but that only made him angrier.
Don't use my colleague, you've embarrassed me again.
His colleagues, looking disdainful, soon said they had to leave. Fortunately, it was the holiday season, so there were plenty of excuses. As they left, he passed out, and I saw them out. One of them apologized profusely as they were leaving.
We heard you were pregnant, but didn't expect you to be at home. Please take care of yourself.
And stopped me as I tried to follow them to the door. After that, I don't remember much for a while. Later, Wallace told me she couldn't get through on the phone and found me unconscious when she arrived. She had called an ambulance in a hurry. I regained consciousness on a hospital bed. Still feeling weak, I decided to keep my eyes closed and rest a bit. Just then, the door to the hospital room opened.
What the hell, you're sleeping soundly. I rushed here for nothing. The house is still a mess, nobody's there, and I get a message to come to this hospital? You've embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. It's definitely divorce now. In fact, wake up already, I need you to sign the divorce papers. The juniors were disgusted with you. A wife who can't even prepare properly, maybe I should divorce you quickly without you noticing the affair. That way, I can marry my girlfriend. No alimony, huh? Am I a genius or what?
No, you're an idiot, I wanted to shout, but I had to pretend not to notice and gather evidence. But how? Just then, Bobby's mobile phone chimed with a notification. He looked puzzled.
Why am I getting a message from Vivian?
What?
I'm keeping Vivian's phone? Take care of your wife if you want it back. Who is this, some creepy person? Take care of my wife, like I don't need her.
Thinking I was unconscious, he kept talking.
Ever since getting pregnant, she's gotten lazy with housework, doesn't care about her appearance, and just keeps getting fatter.
That's natural, I thought, I'm pregnant with your baby. I need nutrition for two. The doctor even said my weight gain was appropriate. He probably doesn't know that. Ah, if only my mobile phone was nearby, I could have recorded this. And to think he's having an affair too. His morals are skewed, but so is that woman. Would you be able to forgive yourself if you were in the same position? Is it even right to engage in adultery with a straight face when your beloved's baby is about to be born? In the first place, is it right to commit adultery?
Hey, is the person messaging actually her affair partner? That would make sense, huh? So she having an affair too?
What ridiculous reasoning. Does he have the brain of an elementary school detective? People who cheat always think their partner is doing the same. Bobby must know he's in the wrong. There's only one truth, and no justification for infidelity. Then his phone rang again.
Huh? I'm not the affair partner? Is this guy psychic? Then who is it? Strangers shouldn't meddle in our business. Who's a stranger? This is a family matter.
The door opened, and Wallace barged in.
What? Why's Mom here?
Why wouldn't I be? I sent the message.
Bobby seemed flustered by this unexpected visitor.
No way, you came all the way from home? I didn't think you would be here, let alone have Vivian's phone. Don't tell me, Mom, you've been brainwashed with lies to excuse her laziness, right?
She began to speak quietly, regretting what he had done.
I've been listening to everything you've said since entering this room, using the mobile phone there.
He looked where she was pointing and seemed shocked. She had hidden her phone in the gap of my bed and connected a call to my phone. The recording function was also used, so the affair was fully exposed.
The worst part is, you neglected Vivian, who's risking her life to give birth to your baby, to mess around. You don't deserve to be a dad. It was an impulse. Vivian hadn't been paying attention to me for a while. Just then, one of my junior female colleagues was, well, giving me attention.
Hearing those words, I reached my limit and sat up, shouting.
Don't joke with me. I'm trying to give birth with all my might. And you play around on a whim?
He, finding no words to reply, looked down in silence.
You have acted despicably. If you mention divorce, I have no choice but to accept it. When it happens, I'll be on her side. I almost died giving birth to you. I've told you this before. Your sister can't forgive your actions as a woman either. She just gave birth recently too.
He made a face as if to say, crap. Doesn't he understand that when having an affair?
But look, I rushed here as soon as she woke up. The affair was a momentary lapse. I swear I won't do it again. I really wasn't myself. I won't invite work colleagues home anymore. I'll end the affair and give all my salary to you. Please, consider this my last chance.
Saying this, he kept apologizing. I smiled and called out to him.
Bobby.
Hearing my voice, he looked at me, as if relieved of his guilt.
Thank you, Vivian. I'll really change.
What are you misunderstanding? This was your last chance.
Understanding my words, his face shifted from relief to despair.
By the way, Dad, me, and your sister haven't forgiven you. Dad even said, don't come home even if you divorce. Basically, you're disowned. I think that's only fair. No way, give me a break. Where am I supposed to go?
He grasped at her feet as if begging.
Bobby, you neglected your wife who's about to give birth, had an affair, invited colleagues home, and sent her to the grocery store. That's 2 strikes for me and Dad. So there's still...
Before he could finish, I spoke.
No. Sister-in-law makes it 3 strikes, and I'm the game set. We'll divorce once the baby is born. As for the broken promise, make sure you pay alimony and child support as a dad. I need to be a father to the baby. Don't divorce me. I'll give you all my money. I'll lose my position at work.
Even now, he seemed more concerned about saving face.
That's fine. Your work colleagues have already contacted me while you were on your way here. Remember when you invited them home without notice and gave out my contact? Someone I didn't recognize called, saying they were supposed to come today. I didn't know the situation, thought your wife went back to her parents. It'll probably be gossip after the holiday season. Please, explain to them it's a misunderstanding.
Still seeking self-preservation, he didn't seem to care about me.
Misunderstanding? It's the truth. The baby will be raised by me, my parents, and your family. We all agreed unanimously. By now, and make sure you keep your promises this time.
This was what Bobby had told me over the phone.
Her parents, your dad and sister, are coming soon. Take responsibility for your actions. We'll apologize for our son's misconduct at the end. Then we'll make sure she and the baby don't suffer. We won't be lenient. We'll front the money, but this isn't for you, it's for her. Work hard at Dad's friend's workplace to pay it back. You won't be comfortable at your current job anyway. You have no choice.
Fine, I'll figure out the money. I'll remarry my girlfriend. She loves me. She's making money online streaming, something about relationship advice. Love Me channel, that's it. I'll join her and make a fortune. Then I'll be a billionaire. Planning all alone, how foolish.
Well, good luck with that, you're a fool till the end. Wallace, it's fine. Bye now.
Bobby left cheerfully, but with trembling feet. He fled before Fael and Sael arrived. The next day, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I had a lawyer handle the alimony and child support claims. Of course, I claimed from his girlfriend too. I continued interacting with my ex-husband's parents, and after settling into motherhood, I received alimony from Bobby. He refused the advance from FIL and borrowed from consumer finance. And it seems, from shady places too. He thought he could repay quickly with his girlfriend's earnings. But reality isn't so sweet. His girlfriend left her job after their relationship became known at the company, making things awkward. The incident of him drinking at home spread around his company, and he quit. His last hope, the streaming, leaked somewhere, and the channel disappeared due to the affair despite being about relationship advice. Doing bad things doesn't pay off. Who leaked it? Sale was giving a thumbs up, but it must be my imagination. If he hadn't mentioned the channel name, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. In the end, he couldn't pay back and is now missing. My daughter and I will surely be lovingly raised by two wonderful families.
I gave your dead ex-husband's life insurance money to my eldest son's wife for her housewarming. What's yours is mine, so you shouldn't have any complaints.
Divorce? Understood. I guess he thought I would cry and refuse the divorce, because my husband seemed a bit surprised. Don't think everything will go your way. Just you watch. My name is Jennifer. I am actually remarried to my current husband, David. I was widowed from my previous husband, William, due to illness. William had a disease since his youth, which worsened and led to his death. Concerned about me being left alone, William left me a substantial amount of life insurance. I had no children with William. I met David through a relative's introduction. When I tried to refuse him, saying I wasn't a first-time bride,
"Don't worry about that,"
he said. I felt happy, as it seemed he accepted not just me but also William. Since remarrying David, due to my frail health and David's high income, I've been a housewife. I gave birth to our daughter Susan and our son Anthony, and I've tried my best with housework and child-rearing. David sometimes brought home stress from work, behaving selfishly and yelling suddenly, but I managed to get by. When David was in a bad mood, moocher, nuisance, he would call me things like that. But I am grateful to David for providing a financially comfortable life. David treated our son Anthony specially as the heir to the house. For Susan and Anthony's birthday and Christmas gifts, school entrance gifts, and other occasions, he clearly favored one over the other. During long vacations in summer, he would take Anthony to his parents' house and not return him for days. At David's parents' house, Anthony could eat sweets and play games all he wanted, messing up his daily rhythm and study habits. When he returned, he would rebel and look down on me, making it very difficult to return to our normal life. I appealed many times to stop this, as it wasn't good for Anthony, but
I took in a woman with a marriage history. A wife shouldn't talk back,
he said, and never accepted it. Susan disliked David and his family's home and left the house early. Susan got married about 5 years ago. She has children and is struggling with childcare. Anthony got married about 2 years ago. His wife was young and beautiful. I often had trouble with Anthony's wife, Nancy's attitude, but we didn't meet often, and I thought maybe that's just how young people are these days, so I didn't interfere much. Now, this happened about 2 years ago. When Anthony and Nancy had dinner at our house to celebrate their marriage, Nancy said as soon as she arrived,
"Wow, what a lovely house. Anthony grew up here? I'm so jealous. David, you're so successful, how impressive." "Well, you know, my wife is useless and can't work, so I had to work hard alone. But I guess this house is getting a bit old, just like my wife." "How unpleasant, houses and women shouldn't be old. Women should be young and cute like you, Nancy." "Nancy, you work, right? That's commendable. In this day and age, capable women need to work and live in society. Unlike my useless wife."
David was smitten with the attractive Nancy and insulted me unnecessarily. This house is old, but I keep it well organized and clean. Perhaps because of David's groundless accusations, Nancy seems to think it's okay to look down on me just because I'm older. She even directed her condescending gaze at my eldest daughter, Susan.
"Susan is just like Jennifer, huh? I think you should take care of your nails and wear some accessories. Have you given up just because you have kids?" "I won't become like Susan after marriage, Anthony, don't worry."
Of course, you're different from Mom and Susan. They're so different, it's like they're not even the same species.
Nancy acts superior and out of line towards Susan, who is struggling with childcare every day, but neither David nor Anthony seem to notice how ridiculous it is. After the dinner, when Anthony and Nancy left, Susan said in a dismayed voice, "Her attitude is questionable, isn't it? Honestly, I don't want to be involved." Regarding this, David said, "Susan, are you angry because she hit the nail on the head?" "Ah, women's jealousy is ugly," he said dismissively. Susan, looking truly disgusted, said, "Dad, you need to look at things more calmly or you might lose your way. A woman shouldn't speak so arrogantly. You always say such presumptuous things, Susan. Just go home." David, upset, locked himself in his room.
Mom, if you have any troubles or concerns, please consult me right away. I'm kinda worried about you.
Susan left after saying that. One day, Susan invited me to a cafe in the neighborhood. Ever since that incident, Susan has been inviting me out more often, maybe to check if I'm all right.
Mom, now that you're free from child-rearing, why don't you find a hobby or something enjoyable? Remember how you used to love gardening? Do you still do that?
I still do a bit of gardening at home. Maybe I should take this time to relearn about different types of flowers and their planting methods.
These days, many people post their gardening pictures on social media, which is fun to look at and can be inspiring. Let me see your phone, I'll install the app for you.
After saying that, she installed a social media app on my phone. Indeed, there were many beautiful gardening images, and I found them educational. I was impressed that young people nowadays use such convenient and enjoyable things. From that day, I started browsing various posts whenever I had time. Not just gardening, but I also began searching for information on local botanical gardens and nice cafes. One day, I came across a post that caught my eye. It was about a new Italian restaurant in our neighborhood, which I had wanted to visit. But David had said,
"Don't waste my hard-earned money on frivolous things."
So, I wasn't allowed to go out to eat. The post showed a man and a woman dining together, perhaps on a date. They weren't showing their faces, just their hands, a high-end brand purse, and the keys of a luxury car. However, the purse and the style of the nails on the woman's hand seemed similar to Nancy's. And the man's hand didn't seem like Anthony's. It bothered me a little, but it was just a post on social media with no solid proof, so I was confused and didn't know what to do. When I consulted Susan about this, "Got it, I'll look into it a bit," she said. Recently, Anthony and his wife announced they were building a new house. It seems to be a stylish house, heavily influenced by Nancy's preferences.
Nancy keeps adding options, and the initial estimate is now a joke. She insists on a top-tier housemaker. But I can't say no when Nancy asks.
Anthony was in a good mood.
"Well, I wanted our house to be nicer than this one." "That's okay, right?" Anthony has no choice but to listen when a cute wife like Nancy asks for something. "I wish Nancy would ask me for something." "Oh, really? I wonder what I should ask for."
My presence being ignored, the three of them were excitedly having fun together. Thinking that a loan beyond one's means would only lead to future hardships, I considered sending some cash as a housewarming gift from us, and looked at the drawer with my debit card inside. To my surprise, the debit card containing the $300,000 insurance money left to me by my late husband William was missing. I immediately confronted David about it.
"The debit card with the $300,000 insurance money from my late husband William is missing. What did you do with it? Where did you put it?"
Then David said,
That money is for Nancy's housewarming. Since it's thanks to me that you have been able to live up till now, that money is mine, right? If you have a problem with that, we can just get a divorce, okay?"
Saying this, David flaunted the divorce papers in front of me. That money was precious, left to me by William. Of course, I never intended to use it alone. It was meant to eventually rebuild this old house into a small single-story home where I could spend my twilight years with David. Anthony and Nancy looked at me with malicious grins.
"That's right, Jennifer. Wait, you remarried? Then you should be more grateful to David. Did William die of an illness? How sad. But money is useless to someone who's dead. We'll make sure to use it properly in his place.
I took you in, Jennifer, even when you had a marriage history. I would appreciate a bit of gratitude. Besides, William died a long time ago. He's none of our concern. Wouldn't William be happier if lovely Nancy used the money more effectively than you, Jennifer?
Facing David's nasty grin, I felt my affection for him cooling. Even though David was arrogant and looked down on me, I endured it because I thought he had accepted me and my late husband William, since it wasn't my first marriage.
David, didn't you tell me not to worry about not being in my first marriage when we got married? Were those words a lie?
Huh?
That was just because I thought someone who felt inferior would be easier to manipulate. And it turned out to be true. Mom seemed to be tough on you because of that, but I couldn't care less.
I was foolish. I had completely misunderstood. As a last hope, I turned to Anthony.
Anthony, I raised you with love in my own way. Do you understand my sadness? What do you think, Anthony? I don't understand your feelings. As long as I have Nancy and money, that's all I need. So, you're giving me the money, right? As a parent, you should do anything for my happiness, right? Fulfill your responsibility.
This was truly a shock. Regarding Anthony, I realized it was my responsibility for raising him this way. A feeling of guilt overwhelmed me. However, now that things have come to this, I resolved to focus on protecting myself.
Understood. Then, let's get a divorce. Thank you for everything.
I said emotionlessly, with a voice surprisingly low, even to myself. David, expecting me to cry and cling to him, looked a bit surprised at first. But then his expression changed to one of pity as he said, "You sure about this? Think hard, okay?" He said, and tossed the divorce papers at me. Anthony and Nancy were distorting their mouths in laughter. They all seemed like aliens to me. How much do they need to belittle others to be satisfied? As I quickly packed my things, I contemplated the future. Once I left the house, I immediately submitted the completed divorce papers to the courthouse. Now we would soon be officially divorced. I rented an apartment a little away from Susan's family's house and started living alone. I didn't persistently pursue David because I had a plan. One day, Anthony called, informing me that David had been arrested for theft. It was natural for suspicion to arise when someone, now a stranger, tried to withdraw $300,000 from a bank account under my name. At the police station, David claimed,
"I supported Jennifer for years, so her things are mine. What's wrong with me withdrawing this money?"
But such a claim wouldn't hold up. Despite his personality, I thought he was a calm and capable person, but his way of thinking had become so twisted. I felt embarrassed to have spent all these years married to such a man. Anthony seemed to think that if I spoke well of David to the police, his punishment could be lessened. Why would he think I would help lessen David's sentence?
I'm divorced now, it's none of my concern. Don't contact me.
I hung up the phone. Later investigations revealed that David had been embezzling company funds, leading to his dismissal. This was surprising. Was there a reason he needed money so desperately to commit such a crime? It felt like there were still facts I didn't know. Around the same time as David's arrest, Susan contacted me. She had been investigating the social media account I was curious about. The posts I had previously seen were carefully made without showing faces, but some revealed reflections in mirrors or easily identifiable locations. It was indeed Nancy. Selling personal information for likes, I was appalled by her lack of crisis management skills. Her need for validation was indeed ingrained. Among the posts were some that slandered or defamed others. There were also posts suggesting personal relationships with several people, hinting at infidelity. Susan presented this evidence to Anthony. Anthony, furious, confronted Nancy, but she brazenly responded,
"If you have a problem, we can just get divorced, okay?"
Showing defiance. Perhaps due to his infatuation, Anthony couldn't bring himself to divorce her. However, it was problematic since some of the men involved had families or held significant positions at work. Moreover, Nancy received a stern warning from her workplace regarding her defamatory posts on social media, making it difficult for her to stay at the company, leading to her resignation. Such actions were typical of Nancy, known for her excessive pride. Well, all of this no longer concerns me. Several months later, I received a call from David. I didn't want to answer, but after several calls, I decided to pick up.
How many times do you think I've called you? Well, never mind. The house is filthy now. No one does any housework. It's like a garbage dump. Jennifer, come and clean it up.
Huh? Who are you?
What?
It's you, David.
Your voice has become so old I couldn't recognize you.
Now, what were you saying?
I said come and clean the house. Can't you understand?
Why should I, now a stranger, clean your house?
What's with that arrogant tone? You and I were married, so you're also responsible for the house I'm living in.
I have no responsibility. How about doing it yourself? Housework is a simple task, isn't it?
I blurted it out, recalling something I had been told in the past.
A man doing housework? I've told you so many times that housework is a woman's job. You're so stupid.
Then how about asking your beloved Nancy? Isn't she currently unemployed, a moocher and a nuisance as you once said?
I found myself repeating things I had been told in the past.
I can't possibly ask Nancy to do such things.
I knew that Nancy wasn't capable of housework, but it seemed David was also afraid of being disliked by Nancy, so he couldn't bring himself to ask her for help.
Look, David. You and I are divorced, so we're no longer husband and wife. I have no obligation or responsibility to clean your house. Understand? If you contact me again, I'll consult a lawyer.
After hearing this, David hastily hung up the phone. Several days later, I received another call from David.
Hey, I'm sorry. Please come back. I'm in trouble because I have no money. Wait, that's it? I'll remarry you. That should work, right? If we remarry, you'll have the responsibility to take care of me, right? This will settle everything. Now, hurry up and do the housework and cook for me.
Ugh. Why do you think I would be happy to get back together with you and take care of you?
I refuse.
Absolutely not. If you keep bothering me like this, I will call the police.
I really hope this is the last time he contacts me. It turns out David had been trying to please Nancy by showering her with gifts. Purses, earrings and other accessories, and even the down payment for a luxury car. That's why he embezzled money from his company. Nancy was aware of David's ulterior motives and exploited them fully. Despite everything being exposed, I still can't understand why David and Anthony can't detach themselves from Nancy. One day, Susan said, "Maybe Nancy is what they call a community crusher?" After some research, I found out that this refers to someone who destroys interpersonal relationships within communities like company organizations, university clubs, mom-friend groups, or neighborhood associations. Characteristics include a distorted need for approval, being aggressive and critical towards others. While I'm not sure if Nancy fits the description perfectly, there seem to be many similarities. But as for me, all I can do now is to live my life without any involvement with Nancy and her ilk. Now, they're known in the neighborhood as a problematic family living in a famous garbage house, constantly arguing with each other. Given Nancy's extravagant tastes, the monthly mortgage on the garbage house is apparently quite high. It's said they're falling behind on the payments and will likely lose their home to foreclosure soon. As for me, I'm living alone peacefully in an apartment near Susan's house. I've improved a lot at gardening on my balcony, thanks to learning from social media. I sometimes do part-time jobs in gardening at local parks or botanical gardens, and also participate in volunteering. One of my joys is occasionally babysitting my grandchild and having meals with Susan's family. Susan's husband is a gentle person and is kind to me. I'm very grateful. Looking back, perhaps my late husband William helped expose the true nature of David and Nancy. This experience made me reflect on how I always felt inferior and never took action before. As a result, I've been hurt, and more importantly, I made Susan suffer for a long time. If I'm this hurt, Susan, who was just a child then, must have suffered even more. I also feel sorry for Anthony. From now on, I plan to think for myself and associate with people who value me and whom I value. It's never too late to start. My life is surely just beginning.